What's up everyone, I am Lolise and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the end of Shane Dawson's series. I'm going to be talking about both part 2 and part 3. I kind of hate calling it a series, it's kind of silly. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get a notification every time I post. And please don't go to anybody and spread any hate, negativity, nothing like that. This is just my thoughts and opinions based on what I'm seeing played on the internet. So if you have something to say about what we are talking about, just shoot it down in the comments below. That's what they're there for. So I did actually already post a video about the first one. It is my last video posted on this channel. I'll link it up here and it'll probably be the recommended one in this. I wanted to post a video about part 2 when it came out. I just honestly, there was way too much going on in my life. I was literally every day going to work and then traveling. There was a lot of medical stuff going on. So much was happening within that was like 2 weeks. It was just YouTube just could not be my priority at that time. Sometimes you just have to make those choices like that. So anyway, I just was like, let me just make a video lumping up the two of them together. I know they both kind of came out like over a week or maybe even 2 weeks. I don't even know at this point whatever. I just felt like I needed to do this because I did one about part 1 and I did have stuff to say. So here we are. I watched this, or I listened to it rather, the day that it came out. Now, I was driving back home. It was like about an hour drive, so this video was an hour long. I saw it had came out 2 hours before-ish when I was driving home, and at that point, it was titled The Retirement of Jeffree Star. So I went into this video knowing that Jeffree Star was probably announcing his like retirement or leaving from YouTube. I didn't know if maybe that meant he was retiring from his makeup business. You know, that it could mean a lot of things. He has a lot of businesses he could retire from. But I went into listening to this video on my car ride home knowing there was some sort of ending of businessness with Jeffree Star. But when I finished the drive and I got home, I ate some food and I told my husband I actually wanted to sit down and watch the video because I was gonna be, doing a reaction to it. The title of the video changed, and at first I totally was second guessing myself. I was like, wait, is this real? Did I just think that was the title of it? And I was like, well, no, I went into the video thinking, waiting to hear Jeffree Star say he was retiring. So yeah, I'm not crazy. The new title of the video is The New World of Jeffree Star. And I think what happened was Shane is not the great documentarian. Is that the right word? Is that how you say that word? He's not as great with this as he thinks he is, because somebody who makes great documentaries isn't gonna like change the title of their documentary after they released it. After several hours of it having one title, he made it another one. I think he realized like people don't need to watch the video to know what it's about. I didn't need to watch the video to know what it's about. I read the title and was like, okay, he's retiring from something. Let's see what he's retiring from. And that's probably why Shane is all like, I don't agree with what he has to say. That's my Shane Dawson impression. The first 15 minutes of this video is them just Shane and his crew, which is just Rylan and this guy, Chris, the camera guy, who I feel bad for because obviously he's going to be compared to Andrew, and Andrew was pretty good at what he did. I feel like it's hard for anybody to live up to that because Andrew was so loved by the Shane Dawson fan community. They pack up to go to Wyoming. It's the first like 15 minutes of them just like going to the airport, getting, their clothes ready. Rylan has a costume change. Jeffree and his assistant Maddie, who left in 2020 but has since recently come back, meet them at the Casper, Wyoming airport. And very quickly we see how different Jeffree Star's life is. He's got an electric Hummer, open carry, wide open spaces, so many less Birkins than before. I do want to say I found it alarming that he just handed Shane a gun in a car where Shane said he had never held a gun before. Yes, okay, he did show him proper ways to just hold a gun without the possibility, lessens the possibility of it accidentally going off. But maybe the first time of handing off a gun to somebody shouldn't happen in a car in a public place. Maybe once you get to your ranch. So while heading back to the Yak Ranch, which is another like 10-15 minutes, Jeffree and Shane go back to the banter that we've seen in the previous series, which I'm like, okay, yeah, same old, same old. But Shane, being obsessed with the cancellation, is constantly referencing it, and obviously it made a huge change in Jeffree's life because of it as well. I don't think either one of them would have moved to the respective places and, become more isolated from people and other influencers and whatnot if they hadn't gone through that. But when you say go through that, it makes it seem like it's something that happened to you, not necessarily something that is from your own actions. And that's where obviously, like, I don't think Shane has really grown or changed, even though he like references it as being like a travesty of their cancellation. You know, and like I said, they make it seem like it's such a travesty that their cancellation happened to them, that they, you know, received public scrutiny for their actions. They do like paint themselves a lot as like victims of, like I said, like this happening to me. That's kind of a victim mentality. They also discuss TikTok, which they discussed TikTok several times throughout both videos, because Jeffree has been doing a lot of TikToks and getting, I don't know, I would assume a lot of views over there, because that kind of beauty content transformation type stuff just translates very well over there, and it's stuff I get pushed to all the time. But yeah, they discuss TikTok and how he is focusing on it a lot more. And they discuss how Jeffree really like shed his LA lifestyle with the huge mega mansion and all the Birkins and designer stuff and the luxury, and how everything in his life was just always about content and upping the ante and doing more and more and more and more. And this is the one area that I actually see like some sort of like real actual growth from one of these two. Jeffree isn't as like materialistic in a sense. He's not materialistic when it comes to the luxury items that have, like, how many times can you use like a bag like that? But he had some sort of awakening of like, this stuff isn't fulfilling, it's not making me happy. And so he sold all of that stuff. And this is where I say, like, he's not totally unmaterialistic, because he sold his mega mansion and almost all of his like Birkin and luxury stuff, which I know was probably like in the tens of millions of dollars, and bought 600 acres in Wyoming, which is still a ton of money. That's a lot of stuff. I mean, it is a better investment than like a Birkin bag. Well, I guess I don't really know if it's a better investment, because apparently, you know, made millions off of selling Birkin bags. I guess I'd have to ask a financial advisor on that. My point is like, he just changed where he wanted to spend his money. But you know, he's still about money in the end. And so is Shane. That's why they're doing this, or at least that's why Shane is doing this, because he needs the views, the clicks, he needs the attention. And you know, that's also why Jeffree is leaving YouTube and going over to TikTok and doing that more, because once again, it needs a validation and attention. And in addition to just still needing the validation and just getting it from other places, Jeffree has just replaced the money like spending on like guns and electric Hummers and yaks and land. Some of those are better investments than others. I'm gonna say right now though, that Jeffree's lifestyle in a sense now is kind of really my dream. I don't want to own like a big giant 600 acre ranch or anything like that, but I would like a small farm with like maybe a couple cows, a couple pigs, some chickens. My husband really wants some goats. I don't know why. He likes goats. But also having an arcade in my basement. I don't need my house to be like a huge house or anything, but I would love a retro arcade in my basement. It would be amazing. So in that sense, I am jealous, because that is my dream one day in life, but I don't need all those yaks. I think we're gonna like leave the yaks out of this if I'm ever able to actualize my dream. But Jeffree does talk about like how he's more private now, and he doesn't share his home online anymore. He used to show all parts of his home previously, both of his previous homes, and like he has not put certain rooms of his home. It's very like Mariah Carey to me. Like when MTV Cribs came to her home, she had owned like a huge penthouse in New York, and she was like, no one gets to go in my room. That's what that reminded me of. So this whole like driving to Jeffree's house and all the like conversations, this happens over like 20 minutes. It takes him 20 minutes of video to get there. So they spent 15 minutes traveling to Wyoming, and then 20 minutes driving to Jeffree's house, which actually I'm sure was longer, but just like in a hour-long video, that's a lot of time. So when they finally get to his house, you know, he shows them, you know, what cars he has left, a couple of vehicles, and talks about how he's gonna be filming TikToks later, and he just sounds so miserable whenever he talks about making TikToks. Like, he's like, look at this, shoot me now, like, this is what it takes to stay relevant on the internet now. But it sounds like TikTok is the only way he's getting his creativity and his validation, because remember, that million views that he gets on his YouTube videos is just not enough for him. He needs like 20 million or something like that. You know, he completely is insulting the million plus people who are watching his videos and probably buy his products and probably still defend him online, and he is just on them. Then at the very, very end of the videos, when he really says like he's retiring from YouTube, and they start to have the conversation, you know, he's retiring from YouTube to go to TikTok, something that he just sounds miserable at. I guess that just goes to show, like, it doesn't matter where you are in the class system of financial wealth. Everybody has jobs that they hate doing because they want to make that money. And that's where Jeffree Star is. He hates his job on TikTok, but he needs to make that money. I don't mean to laugh. It's just like, that's what a lot of people go through. And he even has a TikTok manager who comes in and helps him with like the trends and building the TikToks and everything. But Jeffree also, like, in the same instance of like when she's there, he says, you know, he's done all the social media and he lists like all of it off, like Friendster, LiveJournal, MySpace, Instagram. There's probably more in there that I didn't even know. If you did all those on your own and you were like innovators on there, still can't figure out TikTok. You know, there's nothing wrong with being a business owner and needing help from somebody who's an expert on a social media platform to help push your business. But when your brand is you are a social media star and you like invented being a social media star, it's a little ironic to me that you are having a brand manager come in and help you be a social media star. But basically, I think like TikTok just serves as advertisement for his makeup brand to push people there, and he could use it as a way to push people to his YouTube channel more if he ever posted on it. And then they also talk about ranch life and all that, and Shane even mentions that he realizes Jeffree has not been on his phone since they've been there. Like, he hasn't seen him like on his phone at all, and he used to be on his phone all the time, and it was because of the drama and you were checking things and blah blah, and it was just like so crazy and chaotic. And then they go downstairs and then we get to see the arcade, which I just want to hang out in there. I love pinball. And then they have their little talk about retiring, and Shane says he doesn't agree with it, and Jeffree says YouTube sucks, and then the video kind of just like ends there. While they're talking though, Shane seems like very nervous to talk to Jeffree, like more nervous than Ryland. He says he's not afraid of him anymore, but I feel like he kind of is still. You know, Jeffree's got 2 videos left. The views aren't enough for him. Nobody cares. Those million people that watch his video, they don't matter. They don't care. I'm sorry. It's just like, and I know I keep bringing that up, but it's just like kind of BS because so many people, I would puke if I had those views. I would literally puke if 1 million people watched a video of mine. That doesn't matter to him at all. But he's like, you know, I've done everything, which is so conceited. You have not done everything on YouTube. There's so much left to do. Sure, if you stuck to beauty content, I think your views would continue to stay on the lower end. However, you could really branch out in a lot of stuff. I quickly looked at his channel and he has done other like stuff on the Yak Ranch and stuff. Dive more into that. Like, I think at this point, the people who are still loving to watch your videos are diehard fans and want to see more of you. I think what people came to YouTube for, or what people come to YouTube for now, is way different than what they came to YouTube for 2-3 years ago. We come to relate to people now. We come to hear different viewpoints. We come to see relaxing videos. Don't necessarily come to see people flashing opulent lifestyles in our faces because so many people are struggling right now. So show people other sides of you, other facets of you. Maybe be more vulnerable. That was part of the reason that like the whole first series with Shane and Jeffree took off, because it showed Jeffree in a more vulnerable sense. At that time, he was seen as the YouTube villain. I mean, Shane came and made him look more like an angel, less like a villain because of his like standing in YouTube at that time. Part 2 ends. Part 3 is called The End of Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson. And basically the majority of this video is them referencing cancellation again and again, which shows, you know, they really haven't grown. They didn't really like get it. Like I said, it's just something that happened to them. And it still like carries over a lot of the same things. Jeffree is less materialistic, but though he's not materialistic, he is still shallow because he's just about the views. That's why he's moving over to TikTok. So that's not like a huge thing of growth to me. But he also says that being on YouTube just wasn't fun anymore because they took the fun out of it. They took the fun out of it and made him look like a villain, which I think he totally embraced the role of being the villain of YouTube for a while, especially how he lashed out at people, other creators, how he spoke about other creators, how he lashed out at fans or other creators like supporters, allegedly even using slurs up until like 2, maybe it was 3 years ago, where an old like model slash kind of friend said like, yeah, he still used slurs around me and said bad things about other creators around me. I think that guy's name was Cam Lester. There was a few people that actually came out and said that he still spoke like that around them. So no, nobody had to paint him as a villain. He was able to do that all on his own. And he like comes up with examples of like people that were nitpicking at him with how old his grandma was and like other trivial things. And it's like, well, what about like the actual big concerns that people had and what people were really talking about? What made people go and see all those other petty little things? What made people like hone in on you and look over everything with a fine-tooth comb? It was these bigger problems that people were coming out with, and he just like completely glosses over it. But I am assuming that in Jeffree's world, the gold couch video was, you know, it was the standard. It set the record straight. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He is done. It's over with. So no, Jeffree made himself the villain by his own actions. You know, he contacted drama channels to like manipulate against other people. People just stopped caring about this stuff after a while because now the entire landscape of the world has changed. That's not something people want to be like caught up in and involved in, especially because it started getting really dark and people were starting to see Jeffree's true colors in all of it. But yeah, he just blames others for painting him like the villain when he literally, up until like maybe a year or two ago, was also still dangling this voice memo about James Charles on a podcast. Of course, like the thing with the views is he would probably get more views if he also posted regularly. He's been kind of like bumped out of the recommended regular algorithm because he posts like once, maybe twice a month, when he used to post pretty consistently, at least like once a week, maybe even more, I'm not sure. If he posted more regularly, he would probably start to get more of his subscribers watching his videos because 50 million people are still subscribed to his channel. They didn't bow out when all of the stuff happened, but they're probably just not seeing that stuff show up in like notifications or recommended. If you don't go to your subscription page, they may never see that stuff. He also could take all of his TikToks and post them as shorts. Shorts do make money. I don't really know how all of that works, to be honest with you. It seems confusing. I'm not like an AdSense whiz or anything, but I do get what he says about like, why would I be on a platform where everybody hates me? Valid point. Not everybody hates you though, because once again, 15 million people are subscribed to you still, and at least over 1 million people watch your videos every time you post them. And I also don't buy the whole, everybody only likes short form content now. It's an instant gratification. YouTube statistics or like stats show that people generally like either 8-minute videos here on YouTube, 8-minute videos, sometimes half-hour videos, or 2-hour videos. I myself, I have actually watched several videos that are 4 or 5 hours long. The Right Opinion has some long videos. And Shane seems more upset that Jeffree's leaving than Jeffree is. I think that's because Shane is kind of a fan of Jeffree and also maybe one of those million people that watch his videos. He does actually say it like, I'm not on TikTok. Like, how am I gonna see his stuff? No, Ryland's TikTok. And then more deep talks. It's just like all deep talks about just like YouTube not being fulfilling, what's ranch life like, TikTok and how cringy it is. We meet the social media manager. She talks about some ideas, which I didn't really know what they were talking about, some different trends that are happening. She plays an audio. Jeffree gets super embarrassed about the fact that he's gonna have to lip sync that, and Shane looks like horrified through the entire thing. Like, I felt kind of bad for that girl because like the look on Shane's face every time, like I said, he looks horrified. He doesn't know what to say, what to do. You could tell he wants to like make fun of it, and he does laugh on several occasions like uncomfortably, and then when they go to leave, he's like, oh, I mean, I totally respect what you do. It doesn't feel that way, especially when you say it like that. And then Maddie takes him to their hotel or resort, their inn, whatever you want to call it, and says, you know, we'll pick you up for dinner at this time. We're gonna go to this restaurant. They have the yak burger, Jeffree's yaks on the menu, so they're all gonna try it. And they talk a little bit about like why she left in 2020. She had a lot of stuff going on in her personal life and needed to take care of all that. 2020 was rough on all of us. She does say her job is not nearly as stressful as it was back then because there's not a bunch of drama happening now. It's just like business stuff that she has to help take care of. Good for her. You should never be like so beyond stressed at your job that it's like really affecting your mental health like that. I could never be a personal assistant just to a regular person. I can't imagine being a personal assistant to Jeffree Star, especially during Dramageddons. And then when they get to their hotel is when I really see what everybody has been saying about this camera guy, Chris's camera work being very shaky. They get into, I don't know if it's Shane or Chris's hotel room. I should be Shane's because they get in the bed. But like just a single standing shot of Shane is just like so shaky the whole time. Like, he needs some kind of stabilizer or something for the camera. Like, Andrew was kind of shaky, but it was almost like it was for effects. This guy is just like very shaky. Maybe it's a lot of caffeine, I don't know. It just made it hard for my eyes to like totally focus on what was happening. You know, they lay down in bed, Shane and Ryland, Chris is filming them. It sounds weird when you say it like that, but they are talking about, you know, Jeffree leaving and everything. And Ryland is like way more insightful about all of this than Shane is. Shane is just like, oh, why is my friend leaving? It makes me me sad. I don't know how to deal with it. I want to be happy for him, but I'm sad. And, you know, Ryland's like, you know, this is obviously what, like, he needs. Like, this is better for his mental health. It's not nothing to do with you. Like, this is something that, like, he needs to do. He seems more happier. Like, maybe Ryland is the one that's showing the most growth. And, you know, he says, like, you know, Jeffree doesn't view this situation the same as you do, Shane. Like, he's going through it in a different way. It's his situation. And Shane is kind of making it all about him when it's literally about Jeffree leaving YouTube. Shane, this really isn't to do with you. Well, I guess maybe it kind of is because it's like partially a result of their joint cancellation. Shane and Jeffree are in different places mentally and literally physically. Then later they head to dinner where they have their yak burgers. And I mean, the yak meat itself would probably be fine, but I just, some of the toppings, like it was like fried onions. No, thank you. I'm a picky eater though, so I would just maybe order the burger different. I've never eaten yak though. The dinner is really dark. They were eating in a private room, which is probably a good thing so they don't cause a huge spectacle scene in the middle of a restaurant. These people are so loud. Jeffree talks of future dreams of opening a retail store in Casper where it sells all of his stuff and opening a fast food, maybe not a chain, but just like a restaurant where he sells yak meat. And then they eat some bread that does look really good, but Jeffree makes so many sexual references about the bread that I don't think I want to eat it now. And then after dinner and trying burgers and talking more and making jokes about yaks and how they're eating yaks and did this yak have a name, they part ways. They make plans. Well, they have a funny weird interaction at his hotel. They hear somebody barfing. They make plans to meet up the next day to actually like talk about the palette because they haven't really talked about it at all. It's been a focus all around Jeffree's retirement, not about the palette that Shane thought this whole thing was gonna be about in the first place. He says, yeah, our flight leaves at 1, so we gotta get there at like 11:45, and I'm like, first of all, you have to arrive that early to an airport that size, and they just got there that day. I don't even think they spent like a full 24 hours there, maybe. They weren't there very long. So the next day they meet up there, you know, they're gonna go meet some yaks, which we haven't seen these yaks up in person yet. But first, you know, we gotta have like a good 5 minutes that is like a montage of them, like their highlights from the past 2 series. Gotta bulk up like how long the video is because this one's over an hour long, and if they left out a lot of those montages, like all these highlight reels, it probably would have been a little bit shorter. They are at Jeffree's house the next day. They are loading up to go see the yaks, and Shane asks if the yaks are dangerous. Yes, they are giant animals that can weigh anywhere from like almost 800 pounds to 1,200 pounds, and those are just domesticated ones. Wild yaks can get up to 2,200 pounds. They're massive animals and they have horns. Yaks could totally hurt you. Anyway, they meet the yaks and they are cool. I do like animals. I wouldn't mind meeting a yak someday. I would like to pet their noses and pet their faces and stuff like that if they let me. I don't really know. However, they start talking about, and Shane even picks up the yak poop. He even picks it up with his bare hand and like puts it by his face and smells it, because apparently something with yak sweat glands or something, their poop doesn't smell, because also all they eat is this organic grass in the pasture and alfalfa, and there is no smell to yak poop. However, just because there's not a smell, it's still animal excrement, it's still waste, and I'm sure there's still a ton of bacteria in it, because that's why animals get rid of waste. They have to get all the bad stuff out. And I am just so disgusted. I really hope they have hand wipes, because right after this, Shane starts handling the pallet. So they sit down on a boulder, on like a set of boulders, which Jeffree says this could be a rattlesnake den, and I feel like they didn't take that thought as seriously as I did, because like legit that could totally be a rattlesnake den. And they reveal the palette, which was going to be called Doomsday, and it had this whole apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic kind of feel, and yeah, would not have been the right timing at the beginning of the pandemic for that, maybe like a year or 2 before. I am a big fan of like post-apocalyptic fiction and stuff like that, like zombie stuff, like all kinds of movies, nuclear fallout, stuff like that. I read a lot of different books about the subject as well. It's very fascinating, so the imagery to it is kind of cool to me. However, like I said, timing would have been terrible. The timeline of them when they worked on this though just doesn't totally makes sense to me. They said they started working on this like secretly before the Conspiracy palette even came out. So that was like in November. So in February, it was dated February 7th. I remember that because it's just a couple days after my anniversary of 2020. They were going to the lab and swatching colors. They canceled this palette because of their cancellation, which happened in like, I believe May, June. Some of these colors that they were swatching on February 7th ended up in the Bloodlust palette, which I checked came out February 21st. So the timeline of when they were working on this and it getting canceled is a little confusing to me. And they have a montage where they show all the shades that were in this Doomsday palette that Jeffree went and repurposed for other palettes. He's actually repurposed quite a few of them into several of his palettes. And then the big reveal, Shane opens up his Z palette and you see the palette laid out in its color story where they would have been positioned next to what colors in the palette. The color story to me is not cohesive, which is not surprising because Shane would just see colors in the real world and then be like, I want to make this a color in our eyeshadow palette. Some of the colors are pretty. I probably wouldn't wear half of them, and the other half of them I surely own in one of the many other palettes that I bought when I was over consuming makeup. And I think like with the Conspiracy palette and a lot of other and many of Jeffree's palettes and many other companies' palettes period, the real making of the palette factor would have been the packaging and the marketing that went along with it, not necessarily the color story of the palette, because it's not that amazing. It's really not. So then they make a couple more jokes and then Shane gets dropped off at the Casper airport, and then they also show a clip of Shane and Jeffree getting off a private plane just to show like how things have changed. We used to fly around on private jets and now I'm going in the rinky-dink Casper, Wyoming airport. So we know they're not releasing the palette because, you know, they've used several of the shades already, Jeffree has. But since this video dropped, Shane has actually had 2 merch drops as well. They did release merch from the Doomsday palette. I think it's just like 2 hoodies and a t-shirt, but still. They were like, oh my god, I'm so glad the guy from Killer Merch let us still do this. Like they already had it made or something. I don't know. So they did release merch from this series. And then Shane also just had a merch drop the other day from his podcast, and it says Growers Society. He mentions in the community post that if you listen to the podcast, you know what we're talking about. However, I don't think you need to listen to the podcast to look at that sweater and be like, oh my god, that's wildly inappropriate. And if somebody, even if somebody wore that in public and they had listened to the podcast and knew exactly what Shane was talking about, nobody else out in the world would know what the hell that means except for that it is kind of inappropriate to be wearing. So he's had 2 merch drops since. I see a pattern here. I mean, Shane has no shame. And this is his formula now. Bad joke equals merch. 3-part vlog that I've decided to call a series equals merch. And I'm sure this series also drove diehard fans to go watch Jeffree's videos, probably to get him to 1 million views if he wasn't like already before the series came out. But it also probably drove them to watch the old series and the other videos that these two have done together. So it's probably still driving AdSense money to both of them for people like hanging on to that nostalgia factor. So between like the AdSense he's getting and the 2 merch drops and everything, I'm sure Shane will be able to squeak by with that little bit of money he got for a while now. Like I said, I just see no growth from Shane at all. Like I don't see like insight. I don't see like retrospect. I just see and hear the same gross sexual jokes, comments. I mean, a hoodie that says Grower Society on it. But it seems though Jeffree is maybe retiring, or he like says like hiatus at one point. I don't remember where, but he says hiatus, so maybe Jeffree Star will make videos here and there. I mean, I think Jeffree will probably still make launch videos, and that will probably be it. And he'll complain about how nobody watches those. And anyway, that is it for today's video. These 2 guys can just wallow in their own self-pity all they want. They've got a ton of money to do just that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I will see you guys in my next video. Laters. Bye. Oh wait, no. Before I forget, I did want to tell you guys on my second channel, Lowstalgia, which is my hobby channel where I talk about video games and nostalgic stuff that I thrifted. I am actually going to be doing Vlogmas this year. I'm going to try and do Vlogmas every day, so it'll be more like vlogging, thrifting style stuff. So I will take you guys out when I thrift and show you hauls, and I am doing a reselling business, so we're kind of showing you like a little behind the scenes of that, of getting my life organized. So it's a little more like personal stuff. If you are interested, check it out. Check my link tree down below. It is listed in that, along with my stores as well. Now I will see you guys in my next video. Laters. Bye.